Pittsburgh is a great place to be if you're looking for easily accessible outdoor climbing. Today, I'm going to show you the different climbing areas around Pittsburgh, starting with the most accessible and working our way to some that are a little bit farther away. One of the most accessible bouldering areas in Pittsburgh is the arena at Oakwood Park. The wall is an 18-foot high, 540-foot long traverse made of large sandstone blocks. Simply park on the street and walk up the stairs towards the park to access the wall. Even if you've never climbed before, you can just roll on up to the arena and get started with just shoes and chalk, although a crash pad is helpful depending on how high you want to climb. There's really no set problems, it's just you start at one side and the goal is to make it all the way to the other side. It's around V1 to V2 climbing the entire way, and I've only ever heard of one person, maybe two people, completing the whole thing, but that definitely shouldn't stop you from trying. The arena is also accessible by bus, so if you don't have a car, don't worry, you can still get there. I love the arena and I would go here over and over again. I would say if you're new to outdoor bouldering, go here first. Okay, so next up is Boyce Park. This is basically an indoor gym, but moved outside. And I'm really excited about this. It's just opening up in like the fall of 2024, but I'm not gonna say too much because I have a feeling that people want in this video to hear about real rock. Just keep an eye on this channel and know that there will be a full video about Boyce Park coming to this space very soon, if it's not up already. Next up is Frank Curto, located at Polish Hill near the Strip District. If you've seen that yellow art statue that people refer to as the French fry statue, then you've been right next to this and you haven't even known it. Frank Curto has 8 bolted routes that are about 35 feet tall and they're made of large sandstone blocks. They're all graded 5'9", but if you're used to climbing indoor sport routes at the nearby Point Breeze, they will likely feel more like 5'10" to you. Frank Curto is a great place to climb if you don't know how to lead, because you can set every route up as a top rope using the 2 bolts and a couple of quick draws. If you're leading, each route has about 4 bolts, and it's not a bad idea to bring a stick clip along. The approach to Frank Curto is pretty simple. Just drive to the park and turn onto the faint dirt road that leads you into the area. Be careful not to miss a turn. If you're asking yourself, is this it? It likely is. Trust me, I know this from experience. You'll drive by the French fry statue and all the way past in the grass down near the trees at the end of the park, and that's where you park. There's a break in the wall, and that's where the approach is. Just walk down the steps and you'll be at the base of the crag. In my opinion, Frank Curto is the perfect place for someone that's looking to get into outdoor rope climbing but not having a ton of time to travel to a more distant location. For more experienced climbers, it's a great place to get outdoors in place of an afternoon in the gym, but it's not necessarily a place I'd go back to time and time again. The bridge pillar at Schenley Park is located in Schenley Park near Phipps Conservatory. It's an old bridge pillar that's made up of the same type of sandstone blocks as the arena and Frank Curto. The wall is 25 feet tall and there are 8 routes ranging from 5'7" to 5'11". There are a handful of bouldering problems on a secondary wall also, ranging from V0 to V3. All of the routes here require that you bring 2 alpine draws for the top, for the anchors, because if you don't, your rope will run weird over the edge, and it's just not really a good setup. We didn't really pay attention to this, so we just connected 2 normal draws together, but it wasn't the most ideal setup, so I would encourage you to bring 2 alpine draws for sure. To get to the bridge pillar, you'll park in this circle in the road, and then you'll follow the signs to get to the actual climbing area. The approach itself is about 3 to 4 minutes, super short approach. I wouldn't necessarily recommend coming to Schenley unless you're a confident 5'10" leader indoors, just because there's only 157 and 159, and the rest of the grades are 5'10" and above. And I don't know, I felt like it was kind of hard, to be honest, but if you want to come here, that's totally fine. Just a word of warning. And then the other thing I'll say is, even if you are a fairly confident 5'10" leader, this is the type of place where you go once, maybe twice, but I wouldn't go back over and over again. There's just not really a ton there, and the routes are on the shorter side. Okay, so seldomseen is a Pittsburgh climbing area that I heard a ton about when I first moved here, and I honestly wish that I had checked it out sooner than I did. You'll park next to the Pittsburgh Salt Depot, which is this big dome-shaped building, and you'll walk in. The approach is like a minute at most. You'll walk under this giant arched stone bridge, and climbing here for the first time felt almost like entering into Bridge to Terabithia. It's just like its own little magical world inside of the city, and I think it's really cool. There are about 30 sport routes here, including some that run on the opposite side of the little creek that flows through the area. A handful of the routes can be set up as top ropes, and they're pretty close together, so climbing up one and then moving your rope over from the top to the next one isn't completely out of the question. The routes are about 25 to 35 feet tall, and there's even this one at the top that has a plastic climbing hole drilled into the wall to get to the anchors, which for some reason I just thought was really cool. Overall, I think that Seldomseen is a really great place for newer leaders to get outside and enjoy nature while still being within city limits. And as someone that's been climbing outside for around 5 years now, I have to say that Seldomseen is my favorite place to climb within the city by far. So Breakneck feels like the spot that the locals deem as their home crag, even though it's the least accessible, but it's still fairly accessible. It has around a 10-minute approach, which is cool. There are around 30 sport routes here, with about 8 of them being top rope accessible. And there are also 30 boulder problems, but in full transparency, I haven't bouldered here. From what I can see, it looks like most of the problems are above V4 in grades. But if someone knows something differently about lower graded bouldering problems here, I would love for you to leave it in the comments. There are a few classic climbs at Breakneck, including this 5-6 called Eclipse that runs up this cool flake crack looking thing. And I don't know, I thought it was a pretty sick climb. I think that Breakneck could keep a weekend warrior climber busy for a while, especially if you climb under the 510 grade range or like within that grade range. I've talked about most of the main climbing areas that are in Pittsburgh or very close to it, but now I'm going to touch briefly on just a handful of the climbing areas that are about an hour and a half away from Pittsburgh, like within that scope. This list is not exhaustive. There are other places to climb, but I just wanted to touch on a few of my favorites. So Cooper's Rock is in West Virginia, and it's a boulderer's paradise with over 400 boulder problems V4 and under listed on Mountain Project, and plenty of harder stuff as well. If you want to take a day trip to Boulder, Cooper's is one of your best bets. Ohiopyle is another place to climb in. You can hike in if you want, but the closest crag from the primary parking lot is around 4 miles. So most people bike in along the trail to get to the crags. There are a few different crags here, with Schoolhouse being pretty popular. Overall, there are around 30 roped routes, and the climbing is generally fairly overhung. We went to River's End Crag. In my opinion, it was pretty bad climbing compared to some of the other crags there. But there are also apparently 100 boulder problems in Ohiopyle, but once again, I haven't bouldered there. McConnells Mills is another area that some folks climb in, and actually, this was one of my first outdoor climbing experiences back before I even started this channel. I won't necessarily discourage you from climbing at McConnells, but it's pretty mossy and the routes are quite short, so if anything, I'd go there for the bouldering instead of the rope climbing. Once again, that's just my opinion. I think you could have a lot of fun there if you went with pretty low expectations and the goal was more just to vibe. Many Pittsburgh climbers make the 3-ish hour trek out to the New River Gorge. Some others go the 7 to go to the Red River Gorge, and obviously there's much more that the good state of PA has to offer if you take the time to look around. I think the information that I gave you is a really good starting point, and I hope that it was helpful to you. If you're interested in learning more about Pittsburgh climbing gyms, I also made a video where we went to every single one of them in one day, so you can watch that if you're interested. As always, thank you so much for watching, and remember, life is so good.
Life is good.